you kindly state your full name to the commission, please?
Amadou Abdoulaye Samba.
Where do you live?
I live at 78 Atlantic Road.
What work do you do?
Pardon?
What work do you do?
I'm a businessman.
Would you like to sit down, please?
Thank you.
I am Mary Abdoulaye Samba, representing Mr. Amadou Samba. I have on the 20th of October written to the Commission asking for audience to make certain applications that affected my client, orders that were made on the 13th of October 2017. With the permission of the chairperson, I would like to move my application. A letter was sent to me on the 24th October 2017 agreeing to my request to make these applications.
Very well.
My client was on Monday the 16th of October 2017, after returning from a trip abroad, served with a summons as a witness to this commission. The summons required him to attend in person before the Commission of Inquiry on Thursday the 19th of October at 10 a.m. and so on from day to day until discharge. And he was required to testify in connection with Euro-Africa Group Company Limited on the 23rd of October 2017. And also in respect of Gambej Oil Company Limited with account number 201-103-908-210 to appear before the Commission on the 23rd October 2017. And in connection with properties that were purchased by the ex-president Jammeh. Honorable Chairperson, instead of being heard on the scheduled dates, my client was called in by investigators attached to the Commission to provide them with information. My client fully cooperated with the investigators, and on the 17th, he was served with an interim order dated the 13th of October 2017, which was issued and signed by this Commission. In the said order, Honorable Chairperson, my client was restrained by this Commission from disposing any of his assets in certain listed companies. The order is as follows, that he is restrained with other private individuals, whether by themselves or their officers, servants, agents, or any of them, or otherwise, howsoever, from selling, assigning, mortgaging, charging, or otherwise, disposing any of them movable or immovable assets, whether directly or indirectly owned, including land, shares, stocks, debentures, and other interests in any of their companies or businesses in the Gambia or outside the Gambia, pending the further order of this Commission or the outcome of this inquiry. B, whether by themselves or their officers, servants, agents, or any of them, or otherwise, howsoever, from removing from the jurisdiction any of their aforesaid assets or doing anything that may reduce the value of the said assets pending further orders of this inquiry. The above named persons were given liberty to apply, hence the reason why we're here. Additionally, Honorable Chairperson, on the same date, on the 17th October 2017, an order dated 13th of October was brought to the notice of my client. It was published in the Standard newspaper, Point newspaper, and other newspapers that were circulating, that are circulating within the Gambia. And the said order declared, amongst other things, that my client is a close associate of the President and is restrained, as I have just read. That order was not served on my client, but it was brought to his notice because it was circulated in the newspapers. Paragraph 3 of that said order, Honorable Chairperson, I read from the Standard newspaper, paragraph 3, stated that the assets of known family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction are hereby frozen pending further orders of this commission. Honorable Chairperson, I wish to submit that as a witness to this commission, my client was invited to assist in the inquiry of the commission. He is therefore guaranteed certain rights and immunities as accorded by the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia. I wish to refer the Commission to Section 205 of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, 1997. And it says, a witness before a commission of inquiry shall be entitled to the same immunities and privileges as if he or she were a witness in proceedings before the High Court. Honorable Chairperson, adverse findings were instead made against Mr. Samba before he was even served or made to be aware of the evidence before this commission, and before he even had a chance to appear before this honorable commission. My client, Honorable Chairperson, has not had the benefit of hearing any of the testimonies of any of the witnesses who have appeared before this commission before now. Yet, the order was based on the said testimonies. I believe this is actually contravening the right of fair hearing of my client. Honorable Chairperson, my client was not given any formal notification. Any allegations that were made which might have been the basis for the making of the order were not put to my client, nor was he given an opportunity to deny same or given an opportunity to react to any of these allegations made against him. Further, he was not given an opportunity to cross-examine these witnesses on their unsubstantiated account. Honorable Chairperson, I would like to be advised whether these orders were suo motu made by this commission or whether there was an application made before this commission. And if that is the case, I would like to be given a copy of the facts on which these orders were based. Assuming that there was a hearing before this commission, I submit with all due respect that it should have been made public. I submit also that the findings, the advice findings that were made against him before he was given an opportunity to be heard is against the cardinal principle of odi alteram partem. The right to be heard and to be afforded a fair hearing should have been afforded to Mr. Samba. The fact that he was not given this opportunity to be heard is a fundamental breach of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia. I wish to refer honorable commissioners to Section 24 of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, which says that even where a person is charged with a criminal offense, the individual should be afforded protection of the law and fair play. The 1997 Constitution, Honorable Chairperson, is fundamental, and the Commission must have regard to these provisions. Section 202, if I may refer the Commission to Section 202, which deals with allow the Commission to make certain interim orders. Section 202(2), it says, a Commission of Inquiry shall have all the powers, rights, and privileges of a judge of the High Court at a trial, in respect of only these circumstances, enforcing the attendance of witnesses and examining them on oath, affirmation, or otherwise. B, compelling the production of documents. C, issuing a commission or request for the examination of witnesses abroad. And D, making interim orders. I submit, Honorable Chairperson, that these interim orders must be relative to the attendance of witnesses before this commission. Because if the chairperson looks at the order, it is consistent. The Constitution is consistent with the Commission of Inquiry Act, Cap 30, which deals with a high court at trial. It is very limited powers, and it must have regard to the provisions of the Constitution in terms of making sure that the witness attend, the witness produces documents that are required of him. But in this instance, the interim order, it is in contravention of the provisions of the Constitution. I further wish to refer the Honorable Chairperson to the terms of reference of this commission. The terms of reference, Honorable Chairperson, is as contained in Legal Notice number 15 of 2017, which establishes this commission under the Constitution and the Commission of Inquiry Act Cap 3001, Laws of the Gambia. With the kind permission of the Honorable Chairperson, I refer you to the authority of the Commission. Section 2, it states what the Commission is authorized to do. It says, A, inquire into and investigate the circumstances surrounding the withdrawal of diverse sums of money from the Central Bank of the Gambia, including International Gateway, among other things. To ascertain whether bank policies were followed, to ascertain whether the withdrawn sums were properly applied, identify institutions and persons and group of persons. In fact, it goes on, and I would refer the chairperson to look into the terms of reference, particularly 4, Section 2(4). It says, the Commission shall recommend ways and means. The Commission shall recommend ways and means of A, improving on the supervision of government accounts in a bid to ensuring that irregular withdrawals from government accounts do not reoccur. B, recovering or restoring any assets, monies or other resources that may have been illegally taken, misappropriated, applied, or lost. The emphasis here, Honorable Chairperson, is ways and means. The Commission shall recommend ways and means of these things not reoccurring, not happening again. And that is where the jurisdiction stops. The Commission, I submit, in its order of 13th day of October, has passed that mandate, is outside that mandate, and I submit that it is ultra-virus and not within the Commission's mandate to make orders as such. I would again refer you to the paragraph 3 of the order dated 13th of October, which was circulated in the newspapers in the Gambia, in the Standard and the Point. Paragraph 3 talks about the assets of known family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction are hereby frozen, pending further orders of this Commission. I submit with all due respect to this Honorable Commission that that order is in the nature of an enforcing order. It is actually enforcing rather than recommending ways and means of averting what has happened previously. I wish to submit that any interim order should relate to the ways and means of freezing, but not actually freezing assets. Honorable Chairperson, I submit that this Commission is to make recommendation, not an order of this type, even at the end of the proceedings. Such an order cannot be made by this Commission because it is established under Cap 3001, the Commissions of Inquiry Act, and its terms of reference, which is limited in Legal Notice number 15 of 2017. Under the circumstances, Honorable Chairperson, I pray for the discharge of the interim orders dated 13th day of October 2017 and circulated in the newspapers in the Gambia, particularly paragraph 3, which states that assets of close associates that are out of the jurisdiction are frozen. Unless there's anything else that I need to help the Commission with, that is all I wish to say in this application.
No, we don't require anything except a clear statement of the prayers. What are your prayers? You pray that the orders be
dated 13th day of October 2017. One was served on my client, another was circulated in the newspapers, be discharged. Has it affected my client, be discharged against my client?
That is the prayer.
As the court pleases. The tribunal, the commission pleases. I'm sorry.
Do you have anything to say, counsel?
I thank my learned friend. My reaction, bearing in mind that I'm the counsel assisting the commission, I just have a few submissions to make in relation to my learned friend's submission, not in opposition, because I'm not here to oppose any application, but by way of further assistance to the commission. It's my submission that with due respect to my learned friend, the interpretation that is being urged on the commission is misconceived with respect. The commission's powers are set out in the Constitution, and as she pointed out under Section 202, the commission is given full power to make interim orders. The interim orders that the commission can make is not predicated on its powers to make orders in relation to witnesses. And I think that is the interpretation that is being urged on the commission. To my mind, the effect of giving the commission the same powers as a high court judge is giving this commission an unlimited and original jurisdiction to make interim orders in the context of its mandate. It is not a court, it has a mandate, and the mandate is in its legal notice. So the powers given to the commission must be that even in a court of law, the High Court would have power, original jurisdiction, to grant interim orders without hearing a party. That is trite. Upon the application, upon the filing of a suit, without the other party being heard or without the other party even being served, the court has powers to make interim orders of far-reaching significance. These are known as injunctions. So injunctions and other orders. So the interim orders that were made by the commission are threshold orders without, yes, hearing the party affected, and in this case, the witness affected or the person who has been pronounced by this commission to be a close associate of the ex-president. But that does not make it unconstitutional, because that is the nature of the power that has been granted to the High Court to make interim orders under various rules of the High Court, including Order 10, Order 11, Order 12. All these rules of the High Court empower the court to make interim orders that affect the rights of a party without hearing him at all. And as I said, this does not make such orders unconstitutional. In this case, and in every other case of the nature, the party is given the opportunity to come before the tribunal and seek to discharge or vary the order. And I believe that is what my learned friend is now seeking to do. But the issue of fair hearing does not in any way arise. What at the moment the commission would have to consider is whether any material has been put before the court, excuse my language, before the commission, which would persuade it to vary or to set aside the order. But certainly fair hearing is not one of them. My learned friend has also made submissions regarding the terms of reference of the commission. The terms of reference of the commission are very wide. And I would like to draw the Commission's attention in particular to the terms of reference under Clause 3, which states that the Commission is authorized to investigate, and subparagraph C states the activities of the former President and close associates between the period 22nd July 1994 and January 21st, 2017, and ascertain whether they maintain a standard of living above that which was commensurate to their earnings as public servants or otherwise, they were in control of pecuniary resources or property disproportionate to their past official earnings, to what extent they were involved in corruption, dishonesty, abuse of office, or office for private gain, any other person or matter that may be reasonably related to the foregoing inquiries, and perform such other functions as may be conferred on the Commission by applicable laws, and identify whether any persons or group of persons committed any offense in relation to any matter inquired into by the Commission hereunder. Also, in relation to the exercise of its mandate under Clause 2, Subclause 1, B, C, D, and E, in every aspect of the Commission's inquiry as it relates to the ex-president, the institutions, government, public institutions that are under investigation, the Commission is urged to ascertain whether any other persons or groups of persons were involved in the withdrawal and application of funds that have been indicated in the terms of reference, and the extent to which resources meant for the government or people of the Gambia, including grants, donations, etc., were diverted, converted, or misappropriated. So the powers of the Commission in relation to the ex-president and associates, and even people who have not been named close associates, is very wide. So the question now, as raised by my learned friend, is whether a witness who has been invited to appear before the Commission cannot be the subject of interim orders. In my submission, every person who comes before the Commission is a witness, and the power of this Commission to make interim orders is not in any way limited. In this case, the witness has been named to be a close associate and has been considered and so declared by this Commission. In my submission, the Commission has the discretion to determine whether anyone, any witness appearing before it, and any person not appearing before it as a witness is a close associate. The constitutional provisions that have been relied upon by my learned friend, I believe that Section 205, immunities of witnesses, to my mind, and with respect to her, it's not relevant to this consideration. What is relevant is whether evidence before this Commission, to which this Commission has averted its mind, gives it sufficient reason or sufficient grounds for determining that a person should be regarded as a close associate, and in which case that person ought to be investigated. My learned friend has raised another substantial point, that the witness has really not appeared before the Commission yet and has not yet been heard. So he cannot be the subject of adverse findings. Again, I beg to differ. As I have said, appearance before any tribunal has never been a reason why that tribunal cannot exercise its jurisdiction over such person. And I have given the analogy of High Court proceedings, where on the mere filing of a writ and statement of claim against a party, the court would have the jurisdiction and have the power to exercise the jurisdiction to make orders ex parte without hearing such a party. So By analogy, therefore, this commission cannot be constrained by the fact that a person has not appeared before it in making orders that it deems appropriate to safeguard its jurisdiction. And I would also like to remind the Commission that the Constitution has, there are settled principles on the interpretation of provisions of a Constitution. And these are settled. The Constitution must be given a purposive interpretation and not a narrow one. So in construing Section 202 or all the other sections to which this Commission's attention has been drawn, I would like to remind the Commission, particularly the chairperson of the Commission, who has the powers of a High Court judge, to avert its mind to those principles. What is the purpose behind giving the Commission of Inquiry the powers to make interim orders? The Commission is not a court. It has a mandate, and it means it has a competence. These proceedings are not adversarial. There is no one party against the other. So when the Commission is given powers, it must exercise them by analogy only. And what is the analogy in this case? It is to safeguard the integrity of the mandate and the outcome of the findings of the Commission. And what is that? If the Commission, at the end of the day, were to make adverse findings against anyone, and there is a risk that those adverse findings might be rendered nugatory, might not be effective because, for instance, there are no assets within the jurisdiction in relation to those findings, then those findings would be rendered nugatory. And I think it is in these instances that the power of this Commission to make interim orders must be exercised in order for this Commission to safeguard, as I said, the integrity of its process, to ensure that at the end of the day, this Commission would not have been an exercise in futility. Its orders would not be rendered nugatory. And that is why its interim orders must be used. Wisely and fairly, I concede, but they must apply and under those circumstances. My learned friend has referred to Section 24. I believe I have answered that the right to fair hearing does not in any way affect the rights of a court to make interim orders, and therefore the right of this Commission, or the powers of this Commission to make interim orders without hearing a witness or a person who's been determined to be a close associate. I think one of the submissions she has made, unfortunately, because it's ad hoc, you don't have pre-warning of the submissions that are going to be made. But one of the submissions that my learned friend has made, I believe, is in regard to the determination that the witness, Mr. Samba, is a close associate, and what is the basis for making that determination, and whether an application had been made, and in which case she would be entitled to access to the applications that have been made. My reply to that is that this is a commission of inquiry. It is not a court of law. The jurisdiction of this commission, or the process by which this commission would carry out its inquiry, is not limited to the public hearings. And that is why witnesses are being given the opportunity to put forward their case, to put forward any evidence that they have, even before they are heard. So that, one, it would expedite the proceedings, and so that they can be examined on pertinent issues. But the Commission is not constrained to limit itself to what has been said in public. The Commission may look at any document. And to my mind, what has been said in public media. If this witness has not heard any of it, certainly I don't think that lapse can be visited on the Commission. The proceedings are in public media for the one reason that everybody is given the opportunity to hear what is going on if they are sufficiently interested. And I should think that this witness's name has appeared or has been heard often enough for him to have been interested enough to find out what had been said by him. And I think it's also something that we can all take public notice of, that all the transcript is in the public domain. There are recordings of all the transcripts of all the witnesses that have appeared before this commission. So I do not think any person, anybody, can come before this commission and say, I don't know why. I don't know why. If you don't know why, you have the opportunity to find out why. Everything, as I said, is in the public domain. I don't think it's necessary to go to the substance, but in my submission, this commission did have sufficient reason for issuing the orders, the interim orders that it has issued. And I don't think anything that has been urged upon the Commission is sufficient for this Commission to vary such orders. My learned friend has paid particular attention to the freezing order. And I say to myself, why? Because I don't think the freezing order applies to this witness. The freezing order, as it states very clearly, is that the assets of known family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction are hereby frozen pending further orders of this commission. This witness, even if he was out of the jurisdiction, has come within the jurisdiction, is within the jurisdiction. So the interim order must be given an interpretation in the context in which it is given. It ought not to be given an interpretation that is wider than is intended or appears on the face of it. So that clause of the interim order of 13 October 2017, not applying to this witness cannot ask this commission to vacate it, set it aside, or do anything otherwise. It clearly is intended for family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction that could not be reached. And again, I think it is within the prerogative of this commission to make sure that the assets of such persons are frozen. And I think this is consistent with the power vested in the commission by the Constitution. Because without that freezing, people outside the jurisdiction can manipulate their assets within the jurisdiction and make sure that in any event, whatever the outcome of this commission, they are insulated from any subsequent actions that the President, in his wisdom, once the findings have been pronounced, would take. And I would end just by saying that, of course, it is possible to interpret the finding that the witness is, the order that the witness is a close associate as an adverse finding. But if it is an interim adverse finding, which puts the witness on notice that he is the subject of investigation. And I think that is consistent with the fundamental right to fair hearing. And I do not think that can be interpreted in any way as a finding that is unconstitutional or denies him the right to fair hearing. He is here, he is before the commission. Everything that has been said, he has the possibility to challenge. Every transcript that he thinks he needs and every record, he has the possibility to demand. Nobody is being shut out. But these are interim orders. And yes, they are threshold orders, but they are orders that are necessary in order to safeguard this process, in order to ensure that at the end of the day, this exercise is not an expensive one in futility. Of course, parties have a right to come and say, well, I would like you to vary it, but that is not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that the witness would like to have these orders vacated. And in my submission, and finally, I would say that nothing that has been urged upon this commission is sufficient to set aside or to vacate these orders. with respect. I thank the Commission.
Thank you very much. Ms. Samba, do you have anything to say in reply on points of law?
If my learned friend is agreeing to the fact that the freezing order does not affect my client, that is fine. But the order as it is read in the newspapers, or it is written in the newspaper, says that the assets, it starts with the word, the assets of known family members and associates that are out of the, as if the assets of those persons that are out of the jurisdiction. My client has already been considered as a close associate. It is interpreted that he is part of it. But if she's supporting the fact that it doesn't affect it, we would like the chairperson to guide us in that regard.
Sorry, I didn't get the last one. If
my learned friend submitted that this order, paragraph 3, which was emphasized in my submission, does not affect my client.
Does not affect your client?
My client.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then fine. But I would like some guidance from the chairperson in that respect, because the paragraph talks about the assets of family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction. The interpretation is as if the assets of these close associates that are situated out of the Gambia are frozen. But if my learned friend is saying that my client is not affected because he is now in the Gambia, then we're all right with that. But we would like guidance on that from the chairperson. As the
do you
commission
say, sorry, are you finished?
Yes.
Do you say that, Counsel?
I did say that the order read with the preamble and in context affects the assets of family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction. And this is predicated on the preamble, which says, whereas the following persons, and we list them, are senior army officers who accompanied ex-President Yahya Jammeh out of the jurisdiction to Equatorial Guinea. And others also, Sanajaju and others are also out of the jurisdiction, and their whereabouts are unknown. So the order affects family members. That particular freezing order affects family members and close associates that are out of the jurisdiction. And in any event, as my learned friend knows very well, the jurisdiction of this commission to freeze assets out of the jurisdiction outside the Gambia is just not there in law. We cannot freeze assets over which we have no jurisdiction. So I don't know why such an interpretation will be given to that paragraph, because this commission does not have the power to freeze assets outside the Gambia.
Very well.
So I don't know why such an interpretation would be given. But that is my understanding of that provision of the order. But I'm not sure whether this commission can give anyone advice on the point, as my learned friend is seeking.
Sure. Well, I'm sure Samba didn't want me to give guidance here. Probably she wants guidance, if possible, in the ruling. So if council is done, we shall adjourn this matter to the 30th for ruling, the 30th of October.
As the commission pleases.
Most obliged.
The proceedings shall continue.
Mr. Samba, I believe you said you're a businessman.
I'm a businessman.
How long have you known the ex-president Yahya Jammeh?
Since '94.
How did you come to know him?
I came to know him through Per Kujabi, a Senegalese architect.
A Senegalese? Sorry, I didn't get that.
A Senegalese architect.
What were the circumstances?
Actually, what happened was President Jammeh went to Senegal. I think that was his first visit. And he met with Per Kujabi. And Per Kujabi promised him that he cannot give him money, but he can make some designs for him. and I think he decided to design the airport for him. And when President Jammeh came back, I think few weeks after, Per Kujabi came with the designs. In fact, I was not aware of the fact that he was invited by President Jammeh to the Gambia. It was afterwards, when he met President Jammeh, that he called me and said, Amadou, where are you? In fact, those were his exact words. He said, where are you? I said, I'm in Banjul. He said, I had very good recommendations from your president. That was, you know, just after the coup, so all of us were a little bit cautious. So I said, really? He said, yes. Then we met. He said that he came and saw the president. He brought the designs for the airport, and that the president was very pleased about it, and that he was going to award him the contract provided he had a Gambian partner. So he told me that he told the president that the only person I can think of as a partner is Amadou Samba. These were his exact words. Then the president said, Amadou Samba of Gassem? Per said yes. He said, oh, he has the cement. I endorsed that 200%. So Per said that we have to incorporate a company there and then. And at that time, what I did was, I think we went to Asan Diallo. He just came into private practice. We went there and incorporated Gamsen Construction. That is 50% Per Kujabi, 50% for me. And I think when the project started, obviously...
Did you say Gassem Construction?
Gamsen.
Gamsen.
Gambia and Senegal.
Yeah, Karen.
And obviously when the project started, that's when I started interacting with President Jammeh, because he used to come to visit the sites to look at the progress of work.
So what works did Gamsen Construction carry out?
Pardon?
What works?
We built the airport. It was a fully fledged construction company.
Airport?
Airport, we built the airport. After the airport, simultaneously we built the arch. And afterwards we built the Buyam Hospital. I think that was when Per decided that I should buy him out.
Airport, Arch, Buyam Hospital, any,
yes,
any
and that's
other,
when
any
Per
other
Kujabi
project?
decided
Okay.
that I should buy him out. So I bought him out, and I owned the company almost 99%.
So initially you said it was 50-50, did you say that?
It was 50-50.
50-50?
Yes.
And then you bought him out?
Yeah.
Then you own 99%?
I own 99%.
And the 1%?
I can't remember because
Can't remember. Well, I'm sure you have the documents anyway
yes.
of that company.
This is a long time ago.
So what other projects did you do afterwards?
Pardon?
Did you do any projects afterwards?
I did Serekunda Hospital.
Did you do the Supreme Court building?
Yes, we did the Supreme Court building. And afterwards, you know, there was a lot of talk in town that I'm a friend of the president, so he's dishing out all the contracts to me. That is when I decided to close the company.
Now, these projects that you have mentioned, did they go to tender?
Which ones?
These projects.
No, they didn't go to tender. The only one that went for tender was the Serekunda Hospital. Because I'm talking about projects that were given to contractors during the period of the transition. That was during the period of transition. I think no contract went through tender. Even the schools and all the projects they did was done within a period of 2 years. So they just identified the contractors and dished out the contracts to them. I was not the only one.
All right. Now, can you tell us what other companies you own, or you own shares in?
Well,
in the Gambia during this period?
In the Gambia, I owned shares in GASEM, in Guarantee Trust Bank.
GASEM, is that the full name? If could you?
GASEM, G-A-C-M.
CEM, that's all. GASEM Limited.
Limited.
How many shares?
Well, I've already provided you with documents.
Yes, you have, but this is the public hearing.
Okay.
Yes.
Originally, it was 50-50. Then I sold my shares, and now I own 20%.
Now? Sorry?
20%.
Who are your partners in GASEM?
Well, my partners keep on changing. Now we have the Germans. Hyderabad.
Did you, sorry?
You know, since the...
I didn't hear what you said.
Since
That's
the
what
beginning of the company, we've been changing partners. Like, initially, it was me and a Spanish. Then we sold our shares to Simon France. Then Simon France sold their shares to Ital Cement. And now Ital Cement has sold their shares to Hyderabad. These are the Germans. This is quite recent.
Did you provide the memorandum and articles of GASEM? I don't see.
No, I did. I think well, I have it. I will be able to provide that. But I think I've submitted that. I'm not sure.
Okay. You don't have it there?
No, I didn't come with the articles and memorandum, but...
We'll require that you provide the memorandum and articles.
No, I will do that.
And the change of shareholding during the period.
I will do that. I will do that. The other company is Guarantee Trust Bank.
Guarantee Trust Bank,
yes.
How many shares?
I own 12% shares. Of course, Gumwater is no longer in existence.
It's no longer in existence. Why?
Well, it's a long story. Actually, I mean...
Was it liquidated?
It was not liquidated, but we decided to close. In fact, that's one of the things I would like to explain to this commission.
Go ahead.
Because, you know, I mean, we used to run at a heavy loss because of the former president. Every time he has an occasion, we have to send truckloads of water, and it never gets paid. So this has been accumulating over the years. So when my son took over the business, he said, "Father, we have to close this because it's as if we are running a charity."
The shares were sold, or
no, not the
what
shares.
Sort of
just the equipment.
The equipment.
Yes.
And the company itself, what happened to it?
The company, obviously, I think, sorry, ma, the company is not in existence anymore because
it's not operating as
the main object of the company was the bottling of water. And the other reason why I closed it is because the former head of state asked me to find quotation for him from the very people that supplied me the equipments. So, okay, I did. I asked Northland International to provide quotation for Kanilai Family Farms, and they sent the quotation, and I gave it to him, and he ordered the equipments. And the equipments arrived, and in fact, those equipments are lying in the stores in Kanilai. You know...
Equipment for bottling water, do you mean?
Yeah, the bottling water factory, the full all the equipments are in Kanilai.
I just wanted to be clear, what happened to the company? You're a lawyer, as you know.
Which company?
A company, Gumwater company itself.
Well, what I'm saying
did you
is,
liquidate the company?
I have not
did you liquidate the company?
I have not gone through the process of liquidation.
So,
But de facto, the company is not working.
The company is not operating?
No. Because
all right, let's move on to the next
brain
company.
of the company is the machines.
All right, let's move on to the next company.
Yeah.
What other companies have you invested in?
I don't know.
I believe you mentioned Gamvej.
Oh yes, I'm a shareholder in Gamvej, yes.
Yes, tell us about Gamvej.
Well, Gamvej is a long story. Like, I met this friend of mine in London, a very wealthy businessman called Hussein. So I tried to convince him to come and invest in the Gambia. And thereafter, I invited him to come to this country, and he came here on 2 occasions. It was there and then that he decided that he would like to go into a joint venture with me, a partnership with me, to build a vegetable oil refinery.
Did you say Hussein?
Hussein, yes. Zajidin, something like that.
Is it Hussein?
Exactly.
Zainuddin, Zeinedin.
Exactly, ma.
Okay. All right. So you decided to set up a company?
We decided to set up a company initially, and I had 30%. And at that time, we thought that it was better for us to apply to the Indian Exim Bank for financing, because the equipments were coming from India, and normally if you apply for financing, they will be able to afford you about 80% of the cost. But the application, well, we didn't succeed. So we decided to order the machines for the refinery of palmolene, that is the bleaching of palmolene into vegetable oil. The refinery also had the capacity to refine soybean oil.
Mr. Samba, how did Mr. Muhammad Bazi come into this company?
No, I'm coming to that. Please, allow me to give the history. I'm coming to that, ma. I'm sorry.
The history has to be relevant to our mandate.
Okay then.
You understand?
How did Muhammad Bazi come into the picture? That is why I think it's related to the history of the company. Because when we started, we expected to have protection from the government as a local industry. We were facing a lot of competition from people importing palmolene into the country. So we had no protection. That's what frustrated Hussein to offer his shares to Muhammad Bazi.
Okay. Mr. Samba, we are interested in this company because we note that the ex-president paid into this company $700,000 from a government account, which is called the HIPIC fund. How come the president paid $700,000 to Gamvej, which is a private company?
I'm not too sure about the amount you are quoting now. But as far as...
I'll just tell you the details.
Yes.
On 11 January 2011, instructions were given from the Ministry of Finance on the directives of the President for the sum of $700,000 to be paid to Gamvej Oil Limited. And it was paid from the MDRI HIPC account. And this is what is referred to as the HIPIC fund, Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Fund. So I would like you to explain why he was investing.
I'm saying that I'm not too sure now, because this whole thing about the president's involvement in Gamvej, I was not part of the negotiation. I didn't know anything about it until after the fact. It was, I think, Mohamed Bazi and Pa Bojang and the president that negotiated for the sale of Gamvej. In fact, I was all the time in the dark. It was when, in fact, I came to know about it through Guarantee Trust, because I'm the chairman of Guarantee Trust. It was when, I think in one of our board meetings, they showed the letter coming from the presidency saying that we have to refund, we have to return the guarantee and also refund this sum of money that I came to know about it. In fact, there's a letter to that effect which I would like to read to you, because this letter is very important. Can I?
Yeah, we'll come to the letter.
With your permission.
But this is 2011.
Yeah.
In 2012,
okay,
Social Security put up a guarantee for Gamvej in the sum of $2 million. And I think that's what you're referring to. But first, the $700,000.
No,
you're saying, yes, you're saying that there was...
No. I think I was not in the picture from the beginning.
What is the share structure?
No, allow me, please. I was not in the picture from the beginning. This whole thing was negotiated with the president by Mohamed Bazi and Pa Bojang. You know, I mean, I've never discussed.
We'll come back to it. Let me just ask you, what is the share structure of Gamvej?
Gamvej at the moment is 50-50.
50% to yourself and 50% to
Mohamed Bazi.
What is the Pa Bojang angle in this whole discussion?
That's what I want to come to. You know, Pa Bojang was the managing director of KGI. And I think Pa Bojang and Mohamed Bazi, according to the president's letter, discussed this whole thing about Gamvej. And that's when the president, I think, and the president or Pa Bojang requested Social Security to give out their guarantees for $2 million. And I think the intention was for the president to make good the amount of $2 million and return back the Social Security guarantee. This is what they told me afterwards, because I was not involved in the transaction. And when I confronted Mohamed Bazi, that is what he told me. Now, even the letter coming from the president, with the permission of the commission, I would like to read this letter.
Let me just give you some documents together, then you can submit all, and then we'll give them back to you so you can refer to them. Do you have the memorandum and articles of Gamvej? I do. Have a copy. You do?
Yes.
Yes. If you do, can you produce it so that we can admit it? Can you give Mr. Samba this letter back for the moment?
Pardon?
No, she'll just give you this letter.
Yes.
You know, we have to admit the documents in a bundle because it's more efficient and because we have so many records.
Everything is
and if
there.
you have the transfer of shares, just put them all together.
Yes.
I have the investigators' documents, but the commission does not see the documents.
Here.
Yes.
From inception to date.
Very well. Let's have them. Who is the managing director of Gamvej?
I was not involved in the management. The management was all done by Mohamed Bazi and his team. Neither was I involved in any financial transaction by way of signing checks, making transfers. I was never involved.
Who is the managing director?
That's what I'm coming to.
Mr. Samba?
The managing director.
It's simpler if you answer my question.
No, the managing director was Fadi, I think.
Fadi Mazegi?
Yes.
Okay. Is the company operational?
No.
When did it stop operating?
I don't have the precise date, but we decided to close because we were making losses.
Can you give us an approximate date when it stopped operating?
This is a long time ago. I think I've given you the incorporation documents. Maybe we only operated for less than 1 year, 1 year or 2 years, something like that. It was just for a brief period that we operated.
Very well. Mr. Chairman, may I apply to have admitted Memorandum and Articles of Association of Gambage Oil Limited, transfer certificate of incorporation and business registration, transfer of shares between Hussein Zainuddin and Muhammad Bazi, and related documents, and transfer of shares between Muhammad Bazi and Amadou Samba, as well as a letter dated 4th January 2016 from the Office of the President, addressed to Managing Director, Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation.
Memorandum and Articles of Association of Gamveg Oil Limited. We have two certificates of incorporation here. One is dated the 7th of October 2005, and the other is dated 10th of April 2006. In the first one, the company is called Gamveg Oil Limited. In the second one, it is called Gamveg Oil Company Limited. Now, before we admit these documents, can you please explain why these two certificates? You can look at them.
When we started the company, originally the shareholding, it was between myself, Hussein, and Alaji Basir Dalhatu. I think Hussein owned 50%, I owned 25%, and Alaji Basir Dalhatu owned 25%. Later on, Hussein came back and he struck off the first one and incorporated the second one, the second company. And that is what is existing now.
I see. So it wasn't a change of name?
It was, yes. In fact, not only a change of name, even the shareholding changed, because when we started the first one, it was Hussein had 50%, I think. I had 25%, and Alaji Basir Dalhatu had 25%. That one was struck off.
Which one was struck off? The first one?
The first one.
That is Gamveg?
Yes, that is the one where you have myself, Hussein.
No, I'm relating it to the certificate.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first one.
Gamveg Oil.
Correct.
Limited.
Correct, sir. Correct, sir.
So what exists now is Gamveg Oil Company Limited.
Exactly,
That
sir.
is what exists.
Exactly, sir.
I see. In that case,
in fact, yes. Sorry, sir.
Hold on. In that case, we do not appear to have the memorandum, the memorandum and articles of association of Gamveg Oil Company Limited.
No, it's there.
Well, all right.
There is a memorandum.
Sorry?
That is, yes, there is a memorandum before the transfer of shares. There is the one for...
Please, can you hear me? I'm saying we do not have here before us
yes, sir.
the memorandum and articles of association of Gum Veg Oil Company Limited. What we have is Gum Veg Oil Limited. That is the company which no longer exists. So
if I can look at the documents, maybe I'll be able to.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the second one. Maybe it's the name that has changed, but this is the second one. This is the second one. That is the one between myself and Hussein. Gum Veg Oil Limited. This is the one that succeeded the first one. You have the articles here where you have Hussein 70% and myself 30%.
All right, then the only thing we can enter is what we have before us. And what we have before us is Gum Veg Oil Limited.
Exactly.
If rectifications are made, then so be it. Which is the first?
Meanwhile, Mr. Chairman, may I apply to withdraw the first certificate of incorporation for the company that you don't have before you, to avoid confusion? That's the certificate of incorporation of...
Sorry, you want to, what do you want to withdraw?
The certificate of incorporation of Gum Veg Oil Company Limited.
That's what you want to withdraw. Look at it.
That is the right one.
Excuse me. I have the...
Oh,
I
there
have
are
the
two
letter.
certificates.
Sorry. Yes, I have the letter striking out, the letter from the registry striking out Gum Veg Oil Company Limited.
That's important.
Yeah.
Very well, Mr. Chairman. I'm applying to have the document submitted. That is the letter dated 29 March 2006 from the Registrar of Companies addressed to Ms. Ida D. Drame, restriking of Gum Veg Oil Company Limited, and a letter dated 24th March 2006, which should have come first, requesting for the company to be struck off the register.
Memorandum and Articles of Association of Gum Veg Oil Limited, dated 2006. No day or month stated. Plus certificate of incorporation of Gum Veg Oil Limited, dated 7 October 2005, in a bundle, admitted mark MS81A. Transfer of shares dated 16 November 2006 from Hussein Zinedine to Mohammed Bazi. Transfer of shares dated 10th July 2007 from Mohammed Bazi to Amadou Samba in a bundle, admitted mark MS81B. MS81C, letter dated 4th of January 2016 from Office of the President to Managing Director, Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation, Guarantee Trust Bank, Credit Facility, Guarantee, yes, copied to the Managing Director, KGI, and the Managing Director, Guarantee Trust Bank. Admitted, mark MS81C. Letter dated 29th March 2006 from the Registrar of Companies to Ida D. Drame, legal practitioner for Gum Veg Oil Company Limited, striking the said company off the register of companies, and letter of ID Drame dated 24th March 2006, requesting for the said striking off of the said company. Admitted in a bundle marked MS81D.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll resume. And the first thing we'll do is to give the exhibit MS81C to the witness to read as requested by him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The letter is coming from the Office of the President, State House, Banjul.
Sorry. Can we have...
The letter is coming from the Office of the President, State House, Banjul, dated 4th January 2016, addressed to the Managing Director, Social Security and Finance Corporation, Banjul, and it was signed by one Noah Toure for Secretary General, and copied to MD, KGI Limited, and MD, Guaranteed Trust Bank Gambia Limited. It reads, GTB Credit Facility Guarantee. I write with reference to your letter, that is in response to your letter of 15th December 2015 on the above caption, which was addressed to the Managing Director of Kaninlai Group International, KGI, in brackets. The said letter was brought to the attention of this office, and I have been instructed to inform you that KGI has nothing to do with the $2 million credit facility in question, as it was not negotiated with the authorization of this office. Therefore, the matter should be taken up with those who took the loan without authorization, that is, Mr. Usman Y. Bojang and Mohammed Bazi. Moreover, Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation was written to in 2012 to withdraw their guarantee. Government acknowledges a loan of $750,000 by installment to invest in Gamvej, but we are no longer interested in the factory. Therefore, government is withdrawing from the deal immediately and asking for refund of the amount so far paid, after which the factory could be sold by the bank if they wish.
You wanted to explain this letter?
Yes, I wanted to explain this letter in relation to the guarantee. I think this letter is explicit, especially if you look at where it says, therefore, the said letter was brought to the Assembly, where it says, therefore, the matter should be taken up with those who took the loan without authorization. That is, Usman Y. Bojang and Mohammed Bazi. So, the relevance of this letter is to buttress the fact that I was, from the beginning, not involved in the negotiations. I was kept in the dark, and there was no time that I, in any way, involved myself in this transaction. It was after the fact that I knew about all this.
Mr. Samba, you are a director of Gamvej, were you not?
Well, I was a director, but like I said, I was not involved in the management, neither was I involved in the financial activities of the company. I was an investor.
You were a signatory to the account also, were you not?
Yes, I was a signatory to the account, but there was no single occasion where I signed a check or did any financial transaction. Of course, in the opening of the accounts, they requested for my signature or whatever, but there was no single occasion where I signed a check or did a transfer or did anything, any financial activity relating to this company. Like I said, I was just a mere investor.
But as signatory to the account, you got bank statements?
Pardon?
As signatory to the account, you received bank statements?
Never. In fact,
you didn't receive bank statements?
No, I never received any bank statement. The only occasion where I applied for the bank statement was when I received the summons to appear in connection with Gamvet. That is when I called the managing director to furnish me with the statement. But there was never an occasion where a statement was sent to me. There was never an occasion where I signed any check. There was never an occasion where I was involved in the management of Gamvet.
And you did not think it appropriate to ask for a bank statement as a director of the company?
Well, like for me, it's not very important because at the end of the day, I mean, when you entrust management to the management, whatever, I don't think it is appropriate for me to start involving myself in the financial activities or requesting for statements.
But Mr. Samba, you know being director carries with it a certain responsibility.
I know
yes,
that.
You can appoint management,
no,
but you
I
cannot...
know that very well. But
if I may finish, Mr. Samba.
Yes.
You can appoint management, but you cannot abdicate responsibility to management.
That is quite correct. But what I'm saying is, like, in Gamvet, there was never a board meeting.
Why not? You were a 50% shareholder.
I was 50%.
You were director of the company.
I was 50% shareholder. But the company didn't live long enough. It started and we realized that there was a lot of competition from these people importing palmolene, the poor quality oil. That's when we stopped. So we didn't have the time to really really do what we wanted to do.
This 700, the investment that, according to the records we have seen, which is 700,000 from government resources to Gamvet, was it refunded?
Was it?
Refunded.
I wouldn't know, because I was not involved.
After you saw the letter from, that is MS-81C,
yes,
dated 4th January 2016,
yes,
whereby directives were given for a refund.
No, actually, when I saw the letter...
No, let me finish my question.
Sorry, sir.
Did you
Sorry,
check? Did you check whether a refund had been made?
When I saw this letter, that is when I called Mohammed Bazi to explain to me how and how much was the amount that was paid in advance for this factory. And, you know, he told me that he thinks it's 300, but he will check, something like that.
But Mr. Samba, you had a responsibility. You should have checked yourself. You had the accounts, you were a signatory, you had access to them. Why did you not check?
Like I said, I was never part of this transaction. So as far as I am concerned, the people that they mentioned in the letter should take responsibility. Because at the end of the day, I was in the dark. I didn't know what was going on until I saw this letter. So I'm not really, I never negotiated with the president regarding Gamvet. There was
I'm sure you will appreciate that it's a company. And since the company and your shareholder and director, the company had responsibility to refund this money for a transaction that had aborted according to the letter.
Yes, but
so I would expect that you...
I don't know anything about the negotiations. I don't know anything about financial transfers or anything that happened.
Mr. Samba, you have said that a couple of times.
Yes.
And my response to that to you would be to consider whether as director you can be in a position to make that statement as director of a company.
As director of a company?
Yes.
Definitely yes. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you are not part of a negotiation,
that absolves you of responsibility?
I was not a party to the negotiations.
But the negotiation, don't you think the negotiation was for the benefit of Gamvej, and therefore responsibility lies with the board of directors?
The negotiation was for the benefit of Gamvej?
Yes. So
yes.
The responsibility lay with the board of directors?
There is no doubt about that.
Okay.
There is no doubt about that.
Thank you.
But what I'm saying is, I cannot go into the nitty-gritty of whatever they negotiated.
All right, very well.
But as a company, if there is a transfer to the company, I mean, we will take responsibility.
Thank you. Now, I'd just like you to explain why, the circumstances of, we've talked about the 750,000, which is in the letter, and there's the 2 million credit facility. So if I understand it, KGI borrowed money from, or opened this, I think it's a facility actually with, credit facility with GT Bank, and then they asked Social Security to guarantee it. Is that what happened?
From what I heard,
yes.
You know, in fact, I got to know about this because I'm the chairman of GT Bank. What happened was KGI got this guarantee from Social Security in order to pay for the factory. But when I later spoke to Mohamed Bazi, he told me that they were just using this guarantee temporarily until they can make good the total amount, that's as KGI. Then they will refund the guarantee.
When did you have this discussion with Mohamed Bazi?
Very recent. Very recent.
Very recently.
I called him, yes. I called him because...
When? Sorry, can you be more precise?
I think last week when I received this thing, I called him in order for him to throw light on this whole business.
But Mr. Samba, do you realize that this money was paid into Gamvej accounts in January 2012, $2 million? $2
million was paid into Gamvej account?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there was a guarantee.
Sundry entries, transfer of liability from Gamvej.
No, I think as far as from what I understand, there was a guarantee of $2 million.
Yes.
It's not like there was a transfer of physical $2 million into the account. There was a guarantee of $2 million. In fact, that is what prompted this letter. GT Bank wrote to the president. I knew about it because as chairman, we discussed it at the board level, and we said that we should call in the guarantee because it has been pending for quite a while. In fact, we did that with a lot of hesitation because considering the way he can react, we considered it...
Sorry, the way, sorry?
No, you know, like before we wrote to the president to tell him that we wanted to call the guarantee, it took us a long time because we were thinking, how would he react? Would he close GT Bank? Would he, you know, all sorts of things came into our mind. And eventually, we took the step by writing to him. And it's in response to that letter, this is in response to the letter, requesting KGI, telling the president that we are going to, writing to the president to say that we are going to call in the guarantee of $2 million.
Well, from MS-81C, the letter was in response to a letter written by Managing Director Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. The letter of the President of 4th January 2016, MS-81C, which you have, is in response to a letter written by Social Security and not a letter written by GT Bank.
Yes, I'm sure the bank wrote to Social Security because they are the party involved in this transaction. They wrote to Social Security, to tell them that the bank want to call in the guarantee. And of course, because the president was involved, the Social Security wrote to President's office, and that's when they responded with this letter.
In fact, Mr. Samba, GT Bank did call in the guarantee on the 28th of December 2015 and debited Social Security accounts with $80 million.
Yes.
Yes, and it was later reversed, but it was
later reversed. That's what I'm saying.
It was reversed in July 2016.
This is what I'm saying. In fact, I have the letter, the board resolution reversing this. I have it here. If you may permit me, I will read it out.
You can read it if you wish, if you think it will be helpful to the Commission. So let's have the document and any other document relating to the guarantee that you would like admitted. That's the only one you would like admitted?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Can we admit it first? Then we'll give it back to you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would apply to have admitted resolution of the Board of Directors of Guarantee Trust Bank Limited at a meeting held in the boardroom of Guarantee Trust Bank on the 20th of July 2016, signed by Guarantee Trust Bank officials, dated 20th of July 2016, yes.
Resolution of the Board of Directors of Guarantee Trust Bank dated 28th July 2016 in respect of the approval for the reversal for a set of transactions made against Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation relating to a facility availed to KGI and secured by a corporation, by a corporate guarantee by SSHFC, admitted mark MS 82.
Could you kindly hand over MS 82 to the witness, please?
No, I have a copy.
You have a copy? Very well. That's useful.
You
can read it, certainly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Resolution of the Board of Directors of Guarantee Trust Bank, Gambia Limited. Meeting held in the boardroom of Guarantee Trust Bank, Gambia Limited, 56 Kairaba Avenue, Fajara, on the 20th July 2016 at 2:55 p.m. At a duly convened meeting of the Board of Directors of Guarantee Trust Bank, Gambia Limited, held in the boardroom of the bank at 56 Kairaba Avenue, Fajara, on the 20th July 2016 at 2:55 p.m., the Board of Directors unanimously granted approval for the reversal of a set of transactions made against Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation in respect of a facility availed to Kanilai Group Investment, which was secured by a corporate guarantee by Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation, dated 20th day of July 2016, signed by the Executive Director, Aissatou Jawara, and Bolaji Ayodele, Managing Director.
Okay. You were chairman at the time. You said you were chairman of Guarantee Trust Bank at
Yes,
the time.
I was chairman.
Okay. Why did it take 6 months to do the reversal? The letter of the Office of the President was dated 4th January 2016.
I think it's because we didn't have the occasion to meet as a board. I mean, this thing came, but then, you know, we didn't have the opportunity, or we didn't have the occasion to meet as a board, because most of the directors come from Nigeria. We have to give them notice in advance. You know, I mean, it's a big group.
All right. I just needed to understand.
Yeah.
But as you know, meanwhile, Social Security, the refund was the refund of the principal, right? There was no interest, no return on the funds for 6 months.
Well, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, Ma, because this was purely a banking issue. And at the board level, you know, we are not informed about these things.
Very well. Now, Mr. Samba, what assets does Gamveg own?
Gamveg, actually, they own the machineries. The machineries, we have, like it was a refinery. I mean, it has the capacity to refine palmoline, that is bleaching it and making it into vegetable oil. We also, Gamveg, we have the machinery for soybean oil. We also imported an additional machinery which costed us about $300 and something thousand for refining groundnut oil. Then we also,
this plant, okay,
pardon?
Go ahead.
Then we also have a jerry can for the containers. We have machines, that is, we used to import the grains in order to mold jerry cans, 20 liters, 10 liters, we all have all that. Then we also have, I think, trucks, tanks, etc.
The plant and machinery, are they still on site?
I hope they are on site, because really since the president took it over, we no longer had access.
When did the president take it over?
Oh, immediately. That is when we stopped production. That is when I think he started negotiating with Mohamed Bazi. And all of a sudden, I saw soldiers guarding the place. And I never entered that premises since then.
Mr. Samba, but nothing changed on was there a sale agreement?
Pardon?
Was there a sale agreement between the president or KGI and either the shareholders or the company?
No, there was no sale agreement.
There was no sale agreement.
I don't think there was a sale agreement, because the whole thing was negotiated by Mohamed Bazi and Pa Bojang.
What was the intention? What was the intention?
I think the intention was the president wanted to take over the place, to buy the place.
Are you saying, Mr. Samba, that being 50% owner of this company, you were not consulted as to the sale of the property, the sale of the company itself or its assets?
Really?
You were not consulted?
To tell you the truth, I frowned upon it. Immediately I heard that the president negotiated with Mohamed Bazi, that he wanted the place, and they told me that it was a guarantee coming from Social Security. I straight away, in my mind, thought that this was not right.
What was going to be the purchase price?
I don't even know, because I never negotiated. I was kept in the dark.
You said that. You said you never negotiated.
Yes.
But
I wouldn't know the purchase price.
Mr. Samba, a sale of 15% of a company cannot go through without the approval or the consent, I think is the better word, without the consent of the 50%
I know
of
that.
the company. Yes, you know that.
Can you allow me to answer that?
So, no, let me finish first. So we heard that somebody else negotiated. We've heard you say that. But you must have been consulted, as you, I think, admitted, and you may have frowned on it, but surely the terms of the sale would have been brought to your attention. How much was it that the president was going to pay for Gamvej?
Definitely, I didn't know.
You did not know?
I did not know. I mean, the transaction was never consummated.
But you consented to it?
No, allow me. Allow me, ma.
negotiated. We've heard you say that. But you must have been consulted, as you, I think, admitted, and you may have frowned on it, but surely the terms of the sale would have been brought to your attention. How much was it that the president was going to pay for Gunvej?
Definitely, I didn't know.
You did not know? I
did not know. I mean, the transaction was never consummated.
But you consented to it?
No, allow me. Allow me, ma, I'm sorry. The transaction was never consummated. It was in the process. It was in the process. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the money was not paid in full or whatever amount was it. So there was no agreement as such.
Mr. Samba, there is a difference between consummating a transaction and entering into a transaction. For it to be consummated and for the president to pay a deposit, as he called it, installment, there must have been some agreement.
I don't know.
You
Honestly,
don't know
I
what
don't know
what the
about
agreement
the
was.
existence of any agreement.
Okay. Did you find out from Mr. Bazi whether he signed the sale agreement?
No, not really.
Right. Mr. Samba, you mentioned the plant and machinery. You have submitted to the investigators title deed covering the premises at Denton Bridge.
Yes.
Okay. Apart from the premises at Denton Bridge, is there any other premises owned by Gunvej?
No.
The title deed you have submitted, which is lease, the copy is not very clear. I hope you will have a better copy, which is a lease serial registration number. Do you have another copy? I can read the lease serial registration number.
Yes, I used to have a copy. But you carry on, please.
Yes, it's a title deed in the name of Amasa Fishing Company Limited.
Exactly.
What is Amasa Fishing Company
Amasa
Limited?
is like Amadou Samba.
Okay.
Shortened, Amasa Fishing Company. This was a company I incorporated.
So it owns the premises where the factory was built?
Well, the land is in the name of Amasa Fishing Company. Although the objects, if you look at the objects, it talks about refinery.
It talks about?
Refinery.
The objects of?
The objects of Amasa is talking about
unfortunately, we don't have the objects. Can you make it available? The objects, the memorandum. The memorandum.
Allow me, let me check.
Yeah, the memorandum and articles.
That's it here. That's it here.
You have the memorandum and articles?
No, this is, let me see.
Can you also check whether you have a better copy of this lease in the name of Amasa Fishing Company Limited?
Let me check.
Yes. What document are you mentioning, the memorandum or the lease?
This is the lease.
What is the serial registration number?
It's not very legible.
All right. We'll give you the opportunity.
To look at it?
You did provide a copy which is also not very legible.
Yeah.
But do you have the memorandum and articles? I will apply to admit them, but you would have to bring the original so we can compare the lease and return your original.
Okay.
All right. Do you have the memorandum and articles of Amasa Fishing Company? Of Amasa Fishing Company Limited?
No, I don't actually. I mean, in fact, I have deregistered this company because I no longer operate fishing company.
You mentioned that if you look at its objects, it had oil, and so we need to look at the objects.
Yeah,
Can you provide? We would require, Mr. Samba, a moment. We would require that you provide the memorandum and articles of Amasa Fishing Company Limited.
That is, can I answer? That is what I said, that I deregistered Amasa Fishing Company, but I still look for the memorandum and articles.
When did you deregister it, and what do you mean by deregistration?
Meaning that the company was no longer functional. That's why I deregistered it.
Is it a company registered in Gambia?
It's a company registered in the Gambia, yes.
Was it struck out or liquidated? Was it struck off or liquidated?
I don't think it was liquidated. Maybe struck off. I can't imagine. I can't remember.
But you realize that to the extent that it owns assets, it cannot just be struck off.
Pardon?
to the extent that it owns assets, it owns land, it has a lease, it cannot just be struck off.
Okay, okay, ma, but my intention really was to transfer the title to Gamvej.
Okay, but this was never done.
It was never done because, you know, I'm sorry to speak like that, but it was never done because as soon as we started, like I said, we closed the company and the president took it over, the former president, so we couldn't go through this process, but it was intended.
All right. We would also, when you come back, like you to be more precise as to when the president took over the facility for the purpose of our investigation.
Yes, ma, I will do that, ma.
Can I have the document that you have? Mr. Chairman, I would apply to admit it with the caveat or condition that the witness will produce.
I think you already have a copy.
The original. I'll tender yours. This copy is the investigation file copy. Do you have, or you don't have any other copy?
Mary.
If you don't have any other copy, we'll have mine admitted. The condition would be that the witness will produce the original, so that a better copy can be made and the serial registration number can be ascertained. It's a lease dated 22nd of May 2006. Unfortunately, the serial registration number is not legible.
Lease dated 22nd May 2006 between the Secretary of State responsible for the administration of the State Lands Act and Amasa Fishing Company Limited in respect of land at Denton Bridge Layout. The SR number not legible but to be confirmed in due course. Admitted marked MS-83.